tomorrow all the things were gone I worked for all my life. I had to start again with just my children and my wife. I thank my God above for living here today. 'Cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died and gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Hi, my name is Allison Salinas, and welcome to Citizen Watch. Tonight we have Courtney Peridore as my guest, and I'd like to introduce you. Hello, Courtney. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Awesome. So I know it's been a little crazy couple of days with the weather and everybody trying to stay warm and be safe and whatnot. So I hope you're doing okay on that end.
Yes.
Awesome.
I don't think I left my house this weekend.
I may have run to the store maybe once. So I want you to tell everybody about yourself real quick. You are a friend of mine, and you have been following my campaign for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
And you're obviously a registered voter. So, and you're very passionate about your state. So can you give us a brief introduction about who you are and where kind of you stand when it comes to politics, with a brief description?
Okay. So I am actually born and raised north of Chicago, the northern suburbs of Chicago. I don't like their politics, and I especially don't like their weather. I moved down south. I'd moved down here. I'm just across the river from St. Louis. I work in insurance, and I'm a registered voter, and I'm a Republican. And this presidential election, I actually, for the first time, was an election judge, because I wanted to make sure that things were done right, that I did my part to make sure things were done right. And I know where I was, at least at our ballot, it was correct. So
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I could.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your service as far as being an election judge. And we talk all the time about and I preach with my campaign, and a lot of other people that are either in office or running also preach the same thing. It's important to become a part of the election. It's important to become an election judge. It takes an hour or so of your time, maybe a couple hours, depending on what you're volunteering for.
Right. That was a very long day.
I'm sure.
That one was a very, very long one. And I actually just got my notification for the next one in April.
Nice. Well, I hope you continue to do that and, do your part as far as the election goes. We definitely need all hands on deck. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
So we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of topics that have kind of been surfacing around and angering a lot of people. It's been no surprise lately. Pretty much every other post is angering a lot of people. That may have something to do with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris being in office, but we won't go there tonight. So, so the first topic we're going to talk about is a bill requiring sex education in kindergarten. Wow, what's that about? How are we supposed to expect our kindergartners to even know what that is? So what's your opinion on that bill, and where do you stand? I mean, I'm pretty sure I know where you stand, but where do you stand on it?
So that's a family issue. That's a family issue, and that's a personal issue. That's not something for the school or the government to decide of when my child learns about something like that or any of those topics. Of course, he knows that there are body parts and there's men and, girls and boys are different. But he doesn't need to go into detail. They don't need to go into detail. Kindergarten? I actually heard at one point they were talking about preschool as well. But I know that the bill is assigned for kindergarten. So I don't even know if I have words for that. It's obscene.
It is. It's crazy is what it is. How do we expect, I don't know what kinder, let's see, my mom taught pre-K and kinder. So kinder's what, 4, 5, maybe 5, 6, depending on when they were born.
Right.
That's hard to imagine of a 5 or 6-year-old having that kind of conversation. Not even
comprehending that.
No, absolutely not. And I don't even think 3rd graders should know.
No, there's no reason. I mean, there's kids that girls are getting pregnant younger and younger. Yes, they need the education on it at a certain age, but kindergarten?
Yeah, that's a home stretch, that's for sure. Well, I think we can all agree that's a tad too early, to say the least.
Very.
So I struggle to understand what their thought process was with this. Although lately I don't know what their thought process is with a lot of things. We did talk about this last week, guys, with JCAR, and a lot of it has to do with the schools. And as far as my campaign goes and what I believe in, guys, I'm here to tell you, I don't think the government needs to be involved at all with our education. I don't think they need to be involved with our healthcare. I think those are 2 separate entities that don't need the government involved, period. That's it, end of discussion. There are ways around that. There are things to do. And if you have a chance, and like Courtney, I know you've been on my Senate page. I know you're part of it. So if you go into my details, I talk about that. And I talk about different solutions instead of the government being so involved. We're learning day by day that the more the government is involved, the more problems we have, guys. I mean, yes, I'm running for office, but that's a stretch. You can't mix government and education and healthcare and or religion for that matter. I mean, there's just several topics that, leave the government to taxes and infrastructure and that kind of thing, but not our children. A lot of parents have different views, and I know Courtney will probably attest to this, but every parent has different views of how they want their children raised. Absolutely. And it's important for the parent to be able to make that decision about their child. And with the JCAR bill that's or law or whatever they want to describe it as, that is very dangerous going to JCAR. Nobody wants it passed, and it's very scary. And the thing about it is, and we discussed this a little last week, was, punishing teachers for not wanting to segregate your children is a problem. Part of the JCAR rule that they want to pass, Courtney, is, and I don't know how familiar you are with the whole entire bill, and we won't discuss the whole bill because that's, I think, about 750 pages. But the basis of the bill is, and I'll reiterate this from last week, is not only do they want to separate, your children in school, but they want the Caucasian or white children to apologize for their race. And they want to make it mandatory that, hey, we have field trips to riots and whatnot. And that what? Like,
yep. And what I don't understand is, how does this become a bill or a law when it was introduced by people who were not even elected into office? This came from the Illinois Board of Education. This didn't come from our legislators.
Absolutely.
How
And
is that happening? And why is this allowed to happen?
well, unfortunately, the only clear answer to that as far as Illinois goes is Pritzker.
Yeah.
He's headed a lot of things that are unfair, unjust, and unconstitutional. And I, for one, am not scared to say that on my show or anywhere else. He is a complete tyrant, and he is showing the true side of himself. And he's been doing so for quite a while.
Oh, absolutely. Keeping
And
down for his bailout.
yes,
I said that from the beginning. He was not going to let the state go until he got his coveted bailout.
absolutely. And that's a problem in itself.
Sure
But
is.
so we're going to talk about a little bit of a cheerier side,
Yes.
a little more happier side, because I don't want to grudge everybody down. That's not what we're about here.
That's right.
So we have something coming up for our men and women in uniform.
Do.
And I will reiterate this at the end of the show, but I want to talk about what it means to you personally. If you have any family members in law enforcement or friends, or whether it be police, fire, EMS, you name it, they're in a uniform, nurses, doctors, the police alone have gone through complete chaos with the way they've been treated, disrespected, and dishonored. And the fire departments are having a harder time doing their job because of different rules or mandates back and forth and what you can do, what you can't do. And it's a mess. So what would be your solution to, between the rioters and the police and the fire and the what is the word I'm looking for? Defunding police or things like that. What is your stance, and what do you think is a solution to all of this?
I think there needs to be a line. I think they need to draw a line. Peaceful protesting that's the backbone of this country. Everybody is allowed to peacefully protest. But when you have politicians going on television, on their Twitter, on their Facebook, and calling out to say, if riot is get in their face and push back, and they're inciting the violence is what they're doing. They're endorsing it, they're inciting it. You have a vice president sitting in the White House right now who raised money to bail the rioters and looters out of jail. That's a known fact. It was on her page. There's no question on that. There has to be a line. There's a way to protest without burning down somebody's business and ruining their livelihood. And when it gets to that point, the police need to be able to do their job, and they need the support to do that. There's no reason to defund them. They need more support. They need to be refunded, not defunded.
Absolutely. And, I've heard several people talk about separating Chicago from the rest of the state. Absolutely. And, when I first heard that, I was like, okay. But then I started talking to people in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And what I think a lot of people don't understand is the citizens in Chicago, for the most part, aren't the problem. Most of the problem lies with Lightfoot and her cronies that she orders to do things that are unconstitutional. And I think the citizens of the state are, as far as Chicago goes, I think they're torn. I think they really, some of them, I don't know about all of them, but some of them, at least the ones that I've talked to, when I bring up, separating, I'm like, okay, where are the pros and the cons of separating Chicago from downstate? And although I think the electoral votes need to be changed, I don't think they all need to be in Chicago if we're going to go that route. And I think that both the governor, even though we'd much rather have a different governor, and the mayor need to be coinciding on what they do appropriately and actually make the right decisions. And I think if that happens, then maybe we can get somewhere. But until we get real leadership that knows how to lead instead of following what they believe is what's best, then the entire state doesn't have to suffer, and Chicago doesn't have to suffer. Because I'm pretty sure someone's sitting in Chicago going, I don't want this. I don't agree with this. What are we doing? In fact, more Democrats more now than ever, are backing away going, wait a minute, this isn't even what we signed up for. And they're starting to understand the processes that go on with that.
Yeah.
And I'm just not so sure. I mean, at one time I was like, okay, yeah, easy fix, split the state, be done. But does that hurt or help Chicago is my question. What's your view on it?
Ugh. Chicago is such a mess. I mean, we could get new leadership in there, but it's going to take so long to clean that up. What they've done to it and what they've done to the whole process. Is there fixing it? Is there a way to fix it? Is there somebody that can go in there and fix that? Who's going to get the support from the rest of the legislation to fix it and be able to do what they need to do? Or are they going to be like the former president and hit a wall every time they try to do something good?
Yeah, and that's the, you made a good point, is are they going to get legislation, and are they going to get the support they need?
Yeah.
And as much as that should be an easy question to answer,
it's not.
Our state has made it impossible to answer that question.
Exactly.
Because half of our legislators aren't who they say they are. They preach one thing to get elected, turn around 5 minutes later, they're bought off by somebody, and they're just part of this problem.
Yes.
And it's so frustrating, especially for, someone like me running in 2022. I'm walking into the biggest fire in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's when my voters come to me and say, hey, we've been following you this whole time. We love you to death. We know you're going to make a change, but can you make that change? Are you going to have the same problems Trump did with the rest of the world in Illinois and hit a firewall every time you try? And I don't know the answer to that. That's the problem. I try to be very real with my voters, and sometimes it's not always what they want to hear.
Right.
But
we still need to try.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, as hard-headed as a person as I am, I'm very open-minded, but I'm also hard-headed. And I'm here to tell you, I'll headbutt those walls if I have to, and we'll break them down. But it's not just the legislators either. It's the people of Illinois. It's the people that are sitting down complaining and not standing up. It's the people, and on the other side of the fence, it's people like Courtney, who you're not just going to gripe about the problem. You go be an election judge. You go do your part, which you can do. And if everybody did that, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, and I will reiterate this for the next year and a half. So get ready to hear it probably 100 more times. There is a children's movie called The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, and I will reiterate back to that movie every single time. At the very end of the movie, the Grinch steals all the presents, and all the kids do and all the families do is gather on the Christmas tree and sing in praises for what they do have. And if you look at the ideology of it, it's kind of the same in Illinois, just not Christmas. It's if everybody literally stood together and stood tall and held that line, the difference we can make is untouchable. But getting everybody together is the problem.
Right.
And it's taking shows like mine because I welcome anybody who can hear my voice can say, hey, I want on your show, and I'm going to put you on it. The only thing I ask is respect in return, because I'm going to give you that respect. But it doesn't mean that our opinions are going to be the same. You know, a couple weeks back, we had, I believe it was a couple weeks back, maybe 2 weeks back, we had a lady that, she was a fireball.
Yes,
and our comments were flying off the handle. And I didn't know until halfway through the interview that she was a Democrat 2 months before I talked to her. And when I asked her about why she changed, her answer was simple: God. And that's powerful. That's what people need to think about. People need to stop focusing on the party and start focusing on the person. And I've said this over and over again. Mm-hmm. But so, and we're kind of jumping around a little bit, Courtney, and I apologize for that.
That's okay.
But I want to jump back to this something good.
Yes.
So what do you know, just in your own opinion, from what I've told you and from what you've heard, what do you know that's going to happen in April?
What do I know that's going to happen in April? With
the gala. What is it about? What is it? What do you know?
It is a gala to fundraise and raise money to help to back the blue, to back all the I'm losing my wording. This has been my whole day. The first responders. It's to help the first responders and raise money and to help them and to show support more than anything, because they need that right now.
Absolutely. And we are going to be choosing 3 recipients for the gala. And one will be the Effingham Police, because it is being held in Effingham. The other one will be Brownstown Fire Department. Nice. And then we're working on a third one. So we haven't found a third recipient. We're still making phone calls. So for this, you know, and we have some great things going on with this gala. And I would much rather focus on the positives and what we're doing good to help our communities and outreaches and whatnot, than focusing on what's so screwed up, because gosh, we could talk a year about either one.
Right.
And the positivity rate needs to go up in this state, and the morale needs to go up. So the cool thing about this gala is that not only is it helping people, but it's also bringing people together. And it's giving back a sense of normalcy. Mm-hmm. One thing about the Thelma Keller Convention Center in Effingham is they take it back old school, how things were before March.
Yeah.
And they bring people together. They really focus on what's important. And there's going to be some police officers there. There's going to be some firefighters there. There's going to be, you know, and they're all going to be individually dressed. Unfortunately, they're not allowed to come in a uniform because a politician is putting this on. Mm-hmm. So, but it is very heartwarming to me to see people come together. Now, I asked you to come to this gala.
Yes.
I asked you to attend, and you're coming.
Yes.
You're going to show your support. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
So, switching off gears about the gala real quick, we have some comments. I think your son's on, Sam.
Oh,
he commented. So I guess he wanted to say, hey, it's me, Sam, Mom.
Yes.
And Jean, I believe that's your husband. Isn't the governor's office supposed to be in Springfield? Yes, it's supposed to be. Whether he is or not, it's another story. He likes to leave state.
He likes Chicago. He likes Wisconsin. He likes Florida.
Right. He likes where he has control or he's not touched. So real quick, we have about 5 minutes left. And what I like to do in the last couple minutes is to give you a chance to talk about something that's important to you or that means something to you that we haven't discussed.
Ooh. Oh, now you put me on the spot. Yeah, heads up, girl.
I know, but I'll help you out a little bit. So if we could pick a topic like abortion, they are trying to shut down Planned Parenthood. They are trying to, and I am pro-life, by the way,
Hmm.
but I am also pro-choice to some extent,
Right.
depending on if, you know, the mother's health is right, depending on the situation. So,
Absolutely.
you know,
I agree.
what's your take on that other than that? And where do you kind of stand with that whole issue?
To me, Planned Parenthood, just like everybody else is saying, it was created to control the African American population. And you could see that if you step back and just look at the history of it. They were always placed in lower income, you know, urban areas. Those facilities were always placed there. They never had anybody over there to give them another option. They never had anybody over there to help with family counseling and to keep the family unit together. They never gave the mom another option to do anything. It was just an abortion clinic. That's all they are. They can call it Planned Parenthood, but the only thing they plan is the death of those babies. That's all it is. Might be a handful of people that go there for birth control, but no, not many, I don't think. Um, I think they need to be shut down. I think they are an evil organization. You know, there's enough people out there, people we know personally. You know, my husband and I know personally that have can have babies and have been trying for years and would love the opportunity have to take in a baby. Um, and that kind of goes along with the whole Illinois bureaucratic part, is that it's so hard to adopt a baby, especially when they're taken away from the parents. Um, that kind of sidesteps this, but Planned Parenthood, I think, needs to be shut down. I think there's other things that they could put up and do, better options. There's facilities that they can put up that, yeah, if something like that, if it's incest, if she's been raped, if she's, if it was something like that, then yes, um, absolutely. If they're just being irresponsible, you got to take responsibility for your actions. It just is what it is.
And this is it's a tough topic for me because I'm adopted.
Mm-hmm.
And my birth mother was 17, I believe, when she got pregnant with me. Back then, I was born in 77. So back then, adoption wasn't really talked about. It was considered a disgrace. And so I found out over the years that my biological grandfather had gotten my biological mom to sign the paperwork while she was induced with drugs, and had the doctor convince her to sign paperwork that she didn't know what it was, and it was adoption papers. Now, in my case, that was the better call because she wasn't ready to be a mom. She was nowhere near ready. She
Right.
was still living in bars. I probably would have been changed on pool tables. I'm one of the lucky ones. I was adopted at 7 months, and I was with a family. I wasn't in the system. I was in, and they were actually going to adopt me when my parents came along and adopted me. So I'm kind of one of the lucky ones. I didn't have to live through the system, but I do know what it means to not know where you come from and not have answers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important. And although I believe if the mother's life's in danger, if they're raped, I mean, there needs to be questions asked. There needs to be counseling involved. There needs to be a lot. I'm not so sure mentally somebody can, you have to look at the mental stability of the mom who is
Mhm.
pregnant, can she handle, carrying a baby for 9 months? And although I'm against abortion, at the same time, what is that doing to her mental stability? So it's kind of a tough question. It's
Right.
one of these that when you're running for office like me, and I'm learning this, is you kind of get roped in on both sides, and you have to be open and minded enough to see it. And it's scary. It's a scary topic to venture into sometimes. And if you're not willing to look at all sides of it, then you don't get too much solved there.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
if you look at all sides, there needs to be choice.
there does. And that's where, pro-life, pro-choice kind of gets split in the middle.
Right.
Well, yeah, you're for life. I could have been aborted and I wouldn't be here, but, I was adopted. So it's, again, and we have a comment that I do want to bring up. Your husband, again, he's popular on here.
Good Lord.
So he's not for abortion and definitely doesn't want to have the taxpayers' dollars pay for it. I agree with that.
Absolutely.
I think even if the mom's life is in danger, your taxpayers, your tax dollars still shouldn't pay for it. I think there should be some kind of funding or some kind of grants or anything to where it's funded differently, if that's the case.
Absolutely.
If it's, something, I don't think anybody should have to pay for anything anybody else does. And I think we'd be in a much better position if we had those options. And it seems right now with the government, the way it's going, it's so black and white. It's either this or this. There's never any middle ground. And that's
Right.
the problem with a lot of the, we can sit here and talk all night about umpteen discussions, but if we can't find middle ground, then it's either left or it's right.
And they need to have that option to have the counseling first before, if they're doing this without any of the rape, the incest, those things happening, they should be mandatory to go through counseling first to know what that's going to do to them later down the road.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. Well, guys, we unfortunately are out of time. So I am going to bid farewell to Miss Courtney, and I want to thank you for coming on my show. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see you in person in April for the first time ever, as much as we've talked. So next week on Citizen Watch, guys, we have an artist coming on. So I will announce that on the Citizen Watch page. I don't want to give it away quite yet. She's an up and coming artist. So it's very important. And then after that, 2 weeks from now, guys, get ready. We are going to have a roundtable discussion. So Courtney will be back. All of our previous guests, for the most part, that can attend will be back. So we're going to have probably 10 people on here. So this ought to be interesting. Absolutely. And the more people we have on here, the better the discussions get.
Absolutely.
So you guys have a blessed night. Everybody stay safe. And as always, we look forward to seeing you next week.